Okay. I'd like to call this February 18th, 2021 regular board meeting of the Strongsville Board of Education to order. Mr. Anagnastu, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Soe?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
We're all present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is our district goals. Our district goals remain student academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. And I'd like to start something new with this meeting where we highlight one of our goals and discuss or share a way that we meet that goal. And tonight I'd like to highlight financial prudence and take the time to congratulate Mr. Anagnastu and his department. The focus of our efforts under this goal is to ensure sound financial management practices while maintaining high-quality educational experiences for all students through the alignment of district resources to district initiatives and investments. George and his team recently received the Association of School Business Officials International Meritorious Budget Award for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. This marks the 5th straight year our district has received this award, which recognizes commitment to sound fiscal management and budgetary policies. So I'd like to take the time to congratulate George, his team, and the entire district for their continued efforts on this shared goal of financial prudence. Congratulations, George.
Thank you, Mr. Miko.
So we usually, whenever George discusses the budget award, we usually use it as an opportunity to poke a few jokes in his general direction. But the honest truth is 5 years to receive that award is outstanding. It does show our commitment to the community and the taxpayer that financial prudence isn't just fancy words, it's something we live and we breathe. It is quite an accomplishment. I know in all the years that I've worked with George, it's been great that he always has the data at hand. And so when we're trying to make decisions and we're trying to make weighty decisions, and we say, how much is this going to cost, or how many resources are we allocating for a project, he always has the data at hand. And if that's not the foundation for good financial prudence, I don't know what is. So congratulations again, George.
Thank you, Mr. Miko.
And then the other comment I wanted to share was, again, as a highlight of financial prudence, one of our former own, I guess is how I would say that, Mr. Showalter, Rob Showalter, was appointed to the Fairview Park treasurer, nearby in one of our Polaris Career Center fellow school districts, but he was just appointed, I think, yesterday or earlier in the week, so we send congratulations to him. But he was assistant treasurer here in Strongsville, and we're very proud of him and his accomplishment, and we wish him well. Did you have any other comments, George?
No, thank you for highlighting that. And when I came here 5 years ago, that was my goal to prepare the budget in the format that meets the standards for the Meritorious Budget Award. And for me, it provides transparency within the district's finances to the community. It has the budget broken down not only by fund, where we present the 5-year forecast based on it's a general fund, and line items. That budget goes down into the details of what makes up the 5-year forecast, to each individual department, to the salaries, benefits, and all the various lines. So it's out on the website for people to view, all 600 pages. It has every fund, and then within the fund it has the departments. And then for the student activity funds, it has the high level, but it has each student activity fund as well. So it has 4 years of history, the current year budget, and 3 years of projected. And then additionally, if you don't like all that detail, the first part of the book is an executive summary, and then the last part of the book is statistical information about the district, and there's some really good stuff in there, different comparisons on how we compare to other districts. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's on the website under Treasurer's Report, fiscal year 2021 reports.
Thank you, George. Next on our agenda is public comment. I don't have any slips. Is there anybody who wants to make a public comment? Hearing none. Dr. Ryba, do we have any recognition?
None tonight.
Next is approval of minutes. We have the December 10th, January 7th, January 14th, and January 21st Board of Education meeting minutes. All district video and audio recording are part of the minutes and are available on the web. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you take the roll?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Next on our agenda is Treasurer's Report. George?
Thank you, Mr. Miko. I have a few items for your consideration tonight. The first being the financial report for the month ended January 31st, 2021, which can be found in Exhibit A. Additionally, I also have the supplemental report that compares the forecast with how we're doing. So I have a copy for your screen, and then I have a copy at your desk, and that's the same as the screen. And then also for the people at home, I have it posted out on the website as well. So overall, current year revenue collections are trending 1.1 or 893,000 favorably compared to the forecast, and expenditures are trending 1.3 million or 1.7% under the forecast. We'll get into that in the next few pages. Our current year cash balance as of January, it's 12.7 million, and January's cash balance is 2.2 million higher than last January. I'm sorry, I misread that. So the cash balance for January is 2.7 million higher than it was last January, and then it's 2.2 million higher than the forecast for January. Overall, we're projected to finish the year with a cash balance of 50.3 million, which is 8.5 million operating surplus compared revenues over expenditures. Revenues for the month of January. Revenues were down compared to last January by 294,000. Primarily January, we received the first property tax advance for the spring collection, and that was about $238,000 less than January of last year. We've also, in February, we've also received, although it's not on here, but this week we received the second advance, which was 24.6 million, and it was 280,000 less than last February. Overall, it's still hard to tell how collections are coming because the deadline was extended by a week. So with timing and the mail, we don't know how much of that is actual collections or just timing. So we'll need to collect another 3.8 million in March to hit our forecasted target. State revenues are $48,000 down compared to last January, and that's primarily because of the governor's reduction due to COVID. However, the governor did announce at the end of January that he's restoring a portion of the funding reductions. So we received a $951,000 funding reduction for the year. 521,000 of that is being restored, and that restoration is going to start in February. And other revenues are down mainly due to interest revenue, decreased kindergarten tuition, which is netted against a property tax settlement agreement that we entered in at the end of the calendar year of 2020. On the bottom of the page, fiscal year-to-date revenues. Fiscal year-to-date revenues are 4.2% or 4.2 million higher than last year for the same period, and it's primarily due to property taxes with the new levy being collected for the first time, going for the first calendar year. And then also state revenues, as mentioned, is down because of the decrease, and then all other revenues is up compared to last year due to Bureau Workers' Compensation refunds and dividends that we received of $1.1 million this year, netted against decrease in revenues for full-day kindergarten tuition, interest, and decline of interest revenue due to COVID. Now, on the next page, how it's trending out for the rest of the year compared to the forecast. Tax revenues, I haven't made a change. As mentioned earlier, we'll need to collect $3.8 million to hit this target. So we'll see how that comes in March. We'll know by March 15th. State revenue is actually going to be higher than the forecast due to the restoration. Of that 690,000 increase, 521,000 is due to the restoration. And then the other difference was at the end of each calendar year or fiscal year, they reconcile student counts and any deductions. So there was a fiscal year 2020 reconciliation that we got additional funds for that were deducted out of last year. And then other revenue, $203,000 higher, which were due to the two payment in lieu of tax settlement agreements that we had, which were after the forecast. Expenditures on the following page. Expenditures for the month of January were $6.3 million, and that was $658,000 more than last January of the $5.6 million. And the primary increases are, one, salaries and benefits are higher this year, and then also purchase services and all other expenses. This, for January, was higher this year due to, we had a $300,000 payment for the solo program, and then the Chromebooks that came in, we made a $288,000 payment for the Chromebooks. And then on the bottom of page 6, year-to-date expenditures compared to last year. Year-to-date expenditures this year are $42 million through January compared to last year of $41.4 million, for an increase of $614,000. And the primary increase overall is salaries and benefits compared to last year. And then the last page, expenditures are trending about $1.3 million less than the forecast, or 1.7%. And the breakdown is about $518,000 is for salaries and benefits, and of that amount, $145,000 is for salaries due to the various shutdowns, open positions that we budgeted for, and some either as placeholders or others that employee turnover and there was gaps in time. Benefits, $373,000, trending under, and a lot of that has to do with placeholders that we had for positions for healthcare and employees not taking our healthcare. And then also unemployment costs was lower than what was kind of estimated. And then contract services is about $769,000 less than forecast, which is due to some of the remote days where some of the contract services were needed. So we're generating savings based on nursing costs, student transportation, with the vans that we use for transportation for out of district. So overall, it's trending 1.7% down, or $1.3 million, and we'll continue to monitor these expenditures throughout the year, and we'll see if there's any other fluctuations due to the pandemic, but things are starting to settle down as we're all back in school. So that concludes the financial report. If there's any questions. So moving on to items B and item C, those are both related. So what this is more of a compliance. So it's two resolutions, one to authorize me to book interest earned into the auxiliary service fund and also the building turf fund. We currently do that, but looking into state statute, there should be Board of Education approval to do so. There might have been in the past, but this is something that the state auditors are starting to look at for that approval. So it's been a while. So this is something that I would like to, once we get past this meeting, to add it to the organizational meeting on a yearly basis. That way it's approved every year and we have that for the compliance piece. So it's not going to change anything. It's just more of reaffirming of our current practice. So to read the resolution, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that pursuant to sections 3315.01 and 5705.10 of the revised code, authorizing and directing all interest and investment earnings on monies in the building fund 004 that are designated for turf replacement be retained in the building fund to be used for that purpose. And then for item C, Auxiliary Service Fund monies, Fund 401, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that pursuant to Section 5705.14E of the revised code, authorizing and directing the treasurer if and to the extent interest and investment earnings on monies in the Auxiliary Service Fund, Fund 401, are required by the auditor of state to be credited to the general fund, to transfer such interest and investment earnings to the Auxiliary Service Fund, authorizing the treasurer to take any permitted and related actions that are necessary or desirable in the treasurer's judgment, and otherwise ratifying and confirming the crediting of interest and investment earnings to the Auxiliary Service Fund. So any questions on that?
Just to reiterate, this has been our past practice. We're just memorializing it in our
Correct.
board documents.
Correct. Yeah, it's not changing any practice and reaffirming it and having the compliance piece there for the auditors. Item D, new fund for fiscal year '21, Fund 587, SEC, Special Cost Center 9121, Title 6B Preschool Restoration Fund. This is a new federal fund for fiscal year '21 from the Ohio Department of Education. We had it last year. We've expended the dollars last year, but there was additional carryover that they redistributed of $38.68 that we can use for supplies. So we'll give it to the preschool that they could offset some of their $38 worth of supplies. And then item E, grant approvals, the $38.68 for the preschool restoration. And then in the past, if Richard, you may recall, but for the new board members, we have a physical education teacher, Mr. Martinelli at the middle school, who's always applied for Ohio Department of Wildlife grant, $500. So he applied for that again this year, and it was awarded. So it's for, it's called a Step Outside grant of $500 that he'll use for, not just him, but the PE classes we'll use. In prior years, it was for archery. This year, I'm not quite sure what he's going to do with it, but maybe something along those realms.
If we can get the feedback on what he does, I
Okay.
think we'd all be interested.
And the last item is which can be found in Exhibit B, is the amended appropriation measure for fiscal year '21, which it's the 2 grant approvals, and then there were some other federal redistribution of grants that I adjusted the budget for. So with that concludes my report.
Any questions for George?
No.
Hearing none, Dr. Ryba, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. First discussion item is responsible restart. So we are trending in a very good direction. So, just to kind of give I'm okay right now, George, thanks. A data comparison. Last Thursday, we had 206 individuals in quarantine. Today, we have 57. Last week, we had 43 individuals in the isolation protocol. Today, we have 13. Again, our strategic approach to moving certain classrooms to remote 2.0. All of those classrooms came back on Wednesday after the snow day. So all of our classrooms are in person and continue to trend in a good direction. So as we look at our data dashboard for the building, remember that that's all on the last week's data. So it was last Friday to actually today. Most of it is yellow and green. We've got a couple reds in there, specifically for Muraski, but those are isolation. When we take a look at the isolation data, it's looking at the 2-week per 100,000, right? So that's capturing the last couple weeks, but we are not seeing additional cases at Muraski or any of the buildings where we initially saw a little bit of a spike. So in terms of, where we're at, we're in a good spot. Our kids in-person learning is obviously a benefit to all of our students that want that. Our students that are working through our variety of virtual programs are doing well. So that's really the update that I wanted to give. We're in a good spot and continue to move forward unless there's any questions or additional topics under that area that the board would like to discuss.
I'm just pleased that we're trending in the right direction, and it seems like our plan is responding appropriately when necessary, but it's working and allowing us to have an optimal education environment. So thank you.
Anything you want to add, Jenny? Okay. I read the numbers. She
tabulates the numbers and works on this on a daily basis. And so, the only thing, we know the quarantine rules seem to be like a constantly evolving discussion. But please, we put that in the last update with the additional clarification from the Department of Health and Board of Health for athletes, and we've worked with those athletes individually that were currently under quarantine, and we know the rules moving forward are a full 14-day quarantine from athletics. So just as a reminder for that. So moving on to the second discussion item, which is strategic planning. As the board knows and the community may know, we've had a lot of meetings lately. And a lot of those special meetings have been for strategic planning, taking a look at where do we want to go in the next 6 to 8 months. And so we've set some areas of focus. We've set some desired outcomes. And so the purpose here tonight and in the upcoming meetings is to start to loop back to some of those where we need to finalize some direction moving forward. So everybody, you have at your seat a one-pager that's focuses on the topic for tonight, which is extracurriculars. So we want to talk about supplemental extracurriculars, and really what we want to talk about is supplemental contracts. So supplemental contracts means we are asking somebody to do work in addition to their daily job as a teacher or whatever their role may be in support of some additional programming or other not event, but other participation elements, intramurals, things of that nature that may be beneficial for our students. So we want to take a look at this in 3 areas. First, let's start with the elementary schools. What we're going to talk about are 2 of them are based on reductions that were made in the past. So these were things we had in the past based on previous financial issues. Things were reduced. So supplementals or extracurriculars at the elementary schools. Years ago, when I was an elementary principal, we had a handful of supplementals that we could decide. People had drama clubs, they had book clubs, they had, school newspaper, safety patrol, things of that nature, and those were supported. And so right now we only have one formalized extracurricular that every elementary school has in the one supplemental contract, and that's student council. So a handful of years ago, we went to no supplementals at the elementary school. Now we have one student council. So what we want to take a look at is adding some of those back. We had a community advisory council a handful of years ago before the levy. They provided a recommendation. What I'm asking the board to consider is 2 additional supplemental contracts per elementary school. And then if there is consensus that the board would like to move forward with some extracurricular opportunities at the elementary school, then what that would do is that would put me in a position to start working with the elementary principals to look at what areas of focus we want those to be. If you take a look at student council, you can categorize that as service learning. In those other supplemental contracts, do we want it to be focused on health and wellness? Do we want it to be focused on the arts? Do we want to be focused on STEM? Things of that nature, and then use the individual building needs to determine those supplemental contracts. So that's the first one, elementary supplementals. And I'd like to give you the whole big picture before we discuss. So any questions or clarifications on the elementary portion? All right, for athletics, this would strictly be for high school. We had some reductions years ago in terms of athletic supplementals, and this is predominantly for sports that do not have assistant coaches. So if you take a look at like sports of basketball or volleyball or soccer, you typically have if you have a freshman JV and varsity team. Those sports, like if you take a look at basketball, we're in winter sports right now. We have oh, that's okay. So
that's all the time we have allotted. It's time to move on.
That's right. So does that mean everybody agrees with my plan and we move forward? So athletics, you take a look at varsity, JV, and freshman. Right now we have a freshman coach, a JV coach, and a varsity coach, and those are all considered head coaches. In a lot of sports in our league, there's typically a varsity assistant coach. So we're lacking one athletic coaching supplemental in those sports compared to other similar school districts, other league school districts. Now, if you're watching games or going to events, you may say, hey, there's a lot more coaches on the sideline than that. But what our staff are doing is either we have volunteer coaches or they're splitting supplementals. What that means is, hey, we really need that fourth coach. But you know what, Michelle, you take 50%, I'll take 50%, and we'll divide that up. So we have 4 people, but we really only have 3 supplementals. So that would be the athletics. And what we're taking a look there is not so much a specific like elementary of, hey, we should take a look at adding 2 back to every elementary. But let's take a look and study this. Let's take a look and see and set some criteria. Right now we have no criteria for minimum coaches per sports. Let's take a look and say, should we set a standard for for every sport, here's what we say is the minimum standard, or here's the minimum standard based on enrollment. So you take a look at sports like swimming or gymnastics or golf. You know, we may have big swings in terms of, or tennis, in terms of participation that may not necessitate the need for so many coaches. So it would be developing a system where we could say, here's how many coaches we need, and if there's an enrollment criteria or participation criteria, here's what that is. And that would be presented a recommendation would be presented to the board for May of 2021. Same with the elementaries for implementation for next school year and starting with the next seasons. Any questions on athletics? The last one is non-athletic supplemental. So this is not one that there was a reduction in the past. This would be just something new that we would want to do to add opportunities for our students. And this would be predominantly at the secondary level. But what we have now is if you take a look, again, people may say we have a lot of clubs. We have a lot of activities at the high school, even at the middle school, and that will continue. We have a lot of volunteers and volunteer staff that do that. So the way things work right now is I'm a student and I have a group of students and we have a similar interest. And we say, hey, we're going to go talk to Ms. Hausman. She has a similar interest as us. Ms. Hausman, will you be a volunteer advisor for us? She says, yes, we do our meetings, we do our thing. But if Ms. Hausman no longer has that interest or the student groups leave, that club goes away. So they're kind of ad hoc clubs if you want to think of it that way. Right now, and this is just from memory, there may be more, non-athletic, non-music supplementals that we have, there's student council, there's Key Club, and there's National Honor Society. Other than that, I don't think there's any really clubs that we have said, we want this as a part of our organization, it's important, and we're going to make sure it lives on and is a long-lasting opportunity for our students. So this would be, again, doing a study, taking a look, exploring options for non-athletic, non-traditional extracurricular opportunities for our students, finalizing recommendations and presenting them to the board in May. You know, this is just an example. E-gaming is a popular thing. It's becoming popular. You get scholarships for e-gaming. That's something that, you know, Dave and I have talked about, and Dave has shared some research. If we want to do something with e-gaming, you're going to have to invest in that. And we're going to have to invest in a person because the cost to get it up and going, the cost of keeping it going and facilitating it is going to need a dedicated person. So, you know, that's just one example of a lot, but that would be the idea. So just to recap, elementary would be considering 2 additional supplementals per building, so 10 total. Athletics would be analyze the coaching levels compared to other league schools, other similar schools, see where there's gaps and recommend some additions based on those gaps to the board for consideration. And the third one is taking a look at non-athletic supplementals and seeing where we maybe have some gaps or not just gaps, but where we want to move ahead, where we want to, you know, take a step ahead and share some opportunities for our students that may be looking for something outside of athletics, outside of music, outside of the traditional offerings. So with that, Mr. Micko and board members, I turn it over to you for discussion and ultimately direction on where we'd like to go with the conversation for supplementals.
So I'll start and then we can just go round robin, but the elementary supplementals, I think we can, my opinion is to move forward with it. I think we're restoring something that we cut a while ago and we can afford it. I'm not, at this time, I'm not interested in the athletic supplementals or the non-athletic. I think we have enough on our plate. I think COVID is still, I want to say in the air. That's a bad way of putting it, but we still have, we still are dealing with COVID. And I think that one is going to be where our energy and focus is. So I'm not saying either of those are never. I'm just saying not now.
Have we looked into, or, maybe not the athletic supplementals, but the other two, potentially using some of our wellness dollars to fund those?
I haven't, there's specific categories, I don't have them off the top of my head of what they could be used for, but that's an opportunity. If it could fit into one of those categories, then that's an opportunity we can look
I
at.
mean, I would like to know that, because it seems to me, I mean, I could make a good defense for why it fits into that category, but if we're limited, we're limited.
It's not only just one of those categories, but also a partnership with some sort of community organization as well.
Okay, well, again, I think we
Yeah,
could
we
probably
could
swing
explore
that.
it and see if it fits in.
A couple of suggestions, I guess. For me, I would want the information, so I would say go ahead and analyze it. We don't have to do anything with that information yet, but I think it would be good for us to know where are the places that we're coming up short in terms of coaching. And similarly with non-athletic supplementals, I would want to know like what our specific vision is for those before I would say yes or no. Like, do we want to do esports, or is there a different need from our students? So I think we could ask some of those questions and dig more deeper, and then maybe it's not time to move on them, but at least we can kind of start looking forward. And then elementary as well, I know the original plan you had written up a while ago had 5. So I would like to say, hey, we're going to start with these 3, but have a vision for when are we going to be able to get to those 5, because I think that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see us move beyond just the minimum to getting to, you know, the 4 that you named. I was like, those are all needed, and that's more than the 3. So that's kind of where I fall.
I do agree with Michelle. It doesn't hurt to do the research and come back and let us know where we stand with, you know, with the sports and with the non-athletic. I agree. And you just said, you know, we've kind of calmed down a little bit with the COVID, and you know, if it spikes back up again, that's always going to be the priority.
From an elementary standpoint, I completely support that, and also the vision of what does it look like, you know, beyond the 2 or 3 spots. I guess one of the questions I had in that particular area was if it's up to the building on what some of the offerings are, is there an opportunity for somebody from a different building that says, hey, I want to be a part of STEM over there, or you know, whatever it may be, for a student from a different building to engage in that? If it's not standard across all the buildings. And I think we should look into that a little bit more.
Okay.
So if somebody from Maraski wants to go to Sarar for whatever, or, you know, vice versa. The athletic supplementals, I can get on board with it, but I'd like to understand kind of where we're lacking, especially compared to other districts, and how that plays into growing our kind of feeder system for the different sports. And then for the non-athletic supplementals, I mean, we talk about the need for more social engagement, and obviously COVID is kind of diminishing those opportunities right now. But I think the more we can add and have opportunity for students to engage with each other, the better. So I would like to see more information on that, and where, you know, what are some of the activities, what are some of the ideas that come up. Speaking from, I'm not a gamer. I don't really play games, but I from an esport particularly, I think we're doing a disservice to the students if we're not providing a pathway where there's scholarship opportunities to be had. So that one in particular is obviously a great opportunity, but I think there's probably some other areas we can look at as well.
Everything sounds good. Yeah, I agree with
I liked the elementary when my older daughter was in school. Everything was there. So she had got to do student council and safety patrol, and you mentioned another one that I had forgotten about that she got to participate in. It was just all great, you know. And then unfortunately those were cut. Even for my younger daughter, she didn't get to participate in a lot of those. So I like that. For the teaching and learning, I agree with everyone on that. We can find out, but I do think the non-athletic supplementals are important because not everyone, you know, it gives people who, you know, don't get an opportunity to participate in athletics, which are a bunch of kids, to build their self-esteem through whatever they can find that they are, they can shine at. So, yeah, and I agree with what Seth said too. If we can build those numbers by having, you know, students be able to participate from other schools, that will work out. Maybe like the gaming or an investment club or something like that, where maybe students are from other schools might be interested in something like that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess if we knew more about the cost in terms of, like, Rich was saying, you know, we're concerned with COVID right now, but if the costs aren't that high, you know, if we had some information on what the costs are of implementing some of these programs, that would be helpful. So,
Cameron, for the esports one in particular, we're anticipating a $3,600 supplemental plus equipment cost, right?
Right, so like if you take that's taking a look at current rates for NHS, student council, those non-athletic, yeah, it would be, this next year's rates, the next year cost would be $3,600. Plus whatever equipment cost. You know, the elementary supplementals is about $2,500 per supplemental. And depending on what they do, you know, there may be other costs associated with that. And then the sports are in a range, depending on the sport, from $5,600 to $6,700 for assistant coaches. So those are things where we can kind of take a look, you know, so as you take a look at the cost for, you know, the elementary, that's pretty defined. You know, the other ones ebb and flow based on what the sport is. But what I hear from the board is let's get some additional information. Let's take a look at that and present, you know, kind of, I like what you're talking about in terms of the overall vision, where we want to go, where that focus may be. So it's not just, hey, this is a neat idea, you know, let's do that. And then you guys have information and we can decide where we want to go with it from there.
mm-hmm.
And the only caution I have is that we find that balance of getting us further information, but not getting us it would be unfortunate to get so much information for us to come back and say no.
Right.
You know, there's a cost in time and effort to gather and come up with these plans. So just some judicious on when is enough to feed
Yeah.
back so we can continue the loop.
That'd be great. That's all I had for strategic planning, unless there's any other questions or.
I think we're good.
All right, next we'll move to business services with Darth Breckner.
Tonight for the business services section, there's two items there. The first is the Ohio Schools Council School Bus Cooperative Bidding Purchasing Program. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Strongsville Board of Education approves participation in the Ohio Schools Council School Bus Cooperative Bidding and Purchasing Program and authorizes the Ohio Schools Council to advertise and accept bids on said board's behalf as per the specifications submitted for the cooperative purchasing of 3 72-passenger conventional school bus chassis and bodies.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion?
I have one question, Steve. Is the 72 passenger the larger of the options for the buses?
It's the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a 77,
Okay.
but it won't fit into our bus
Uh-huh.
garage.
And what is
So
the smaller option?
Smaller was 65.
Okay.
And we've been moving away from those and getting the larger passengers buses for when, hopefully it returns where we don't have the 44 person cap,
Yeah.
so we can put more students on the bus.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Steve, I recently read that one of the, another district around us added seatbelts to their new buses. Do you anticipate that coming down the line as something that we're gonna have to do?
I've had that conversation with the gentleman that was spearheading it, I think it was 2 years ago now. I haven't had any traction gained from that. That's something that we looked at, and it was cost prohibitive at that point, and I can definitely meet with whoever and talk. The major talking point is our buses are designed not to flip. They're just so high, they ride high, there's so many safety features on them, and that's the selling point for some of the buses to have the safety, seat belts, is the flipping, and we're not in danger of that, especially being in the city. But we did explore and looked into, and if something does come down the road where it's recommended as far as from the state level and the cooperative purchasing program, we can investigate that again.
And I just want to reiterate, cost prohibitive isn't the only issue. It's an additional cost that doesn't, because of the way we use our buses, because of the buses we have, doesn't increase our safety. I mean, if it would increase the safety of our passengers, we would certainly explore it. But right now, as you indicated, the buses and the way we use them, it isn't a safety issue. Is that correct?
Correct.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Anagnostou.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes, and the motion carries.
The second item are gifts. Staples donated packs of pink erasers, folders, small bottles of hand sanitizer, crayons, and colored pencils to Whitney Elementary School. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Next up with the curriculum report is Aaron.
Good evening. I have just one item tonight for you under curriculum, and this is with our pass-through portion of funding. It's a service agreement between McKeon Education Group, also known as MEG. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education enters into an agreement with McKeon Education Group in the amount of $3,000 to provide social emotional programs at St. Joseph and John School under Title 4A. It's federal funding, and it's shown in Exhibit C.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks.
We have nothing under student services for this month, and Jenny with the human resource report.
Thank you. Under Human Resources this evening, I have the following items for your consideration. Under E1, dismissal of a non-certificated staff member. Under E2, resignations for non-certificated staff. Resignation for non-certificated supplemental. Under E3, we have one retirement for non-certificated staff. Under E4, appointments for certificated staff and appointments for non-certificated staff. Appointments for certificated athletic supplemental contracts. Appointments for non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts. Appointments for certificated substitutes. Appointments for non-certificated substitutes. Continuing appointments for certificated supplemental contracts paid upon completion. Appointment for non-certificated supplemental contract paid upon completion. Under E5, changes in hours for non-certificated staff. Under E6, change in status for non-certificated staff. We have a change in status for certificated contract extension. Under E7, stipend for kindergarten early entrance screening. Under E8, continuing contract for non-certificated staff. Under E9, we have medical leaves for certificated staff and medical leaves for non-certificated staff. Mr. Miko, under E10, I do need to remove that item. There is one unpaid leave for a certificated staff member. So I just need to remove the unpaid leave for the certificated staff member. We can
Thank
keep-
you.
We can keep the unpaid leaves for non-certificated staff there. And then finally, under E11, volunteer coach. And that concludes my report.
We have no items for technology, so that concludes the superintendent's report.
Next on our agenda is report on Polaris Career Center. Michelle?
Yes, little piece of trivia this month. February is National Career and Technical Education Month, so we will celebrate Polaris and be appreciative for their services to our community this month. February is the month of Polaris where they don't meet as a whole board, so I don't have a full board update, but what we do is meet individually with Mr. Bob Timmons, the superintendent there, and Mr. Mike Robinson, the treasurer. So I did have my meeting with them last week, and that was really nice. I got to hear about, kind of really what of Polaris I haven't seen yet, because so much of it's been shut down and I haven't been able to participate fully there. So I got to just kind of get to know them a little bit better and see their vision for where Polaris is going. And part of that has been in the news lately. If you want to check out cleveland.com. I've mentioned it before, but now it's hit the media. Polaris Career Center has partnered with Swagelok here in Strongsville. And it's a really nice story on cleveland.com from February 14th, 2021, so Sunday. And they shared about a teacher there who is ill and how Swagelok has kind of stepped up and offered our students at Polaris opportunities to partner with them, and also moving forward with some internship possibilities. So take a look at that. And that was also featured on the OSBA Facebook page this week too, so it's kind of getting coverage at the state level, which is fantastic for Polaris and for our community. The other thing to note is that Cleveland.com also featured an article about Chef O on February 12th, and he won his 11th straight ProStart Teacher of Distinction Award. So apparently they have a really awesome chef over there who keeps the kids at the forefront of his teaching and learning at all times. So congratulations to Chef O and to Polaris on their outstanding service to our community. The only other thing to keep in mind is that enrollment is still open for students who are interested, and they're doing something called Tuesday Tours through March 30th. You can check out their website and you can sign up for a 30-minute tour. I think it's between the hours of 3 and 7 p.m. every Tuesday from now until March 30th, and you can get a one-on-one tour of the facility there if you have a student who is interested. That concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Thank you. Next is report on legislation. Sherry?
I don't have anything today, so
I-
unless you have anything.
I will comment that in the news, they have assigned a number, and it's House Bill 1, so it should be very easy for all of us to remember and pay attention to. But House Bill 1 is this General Assembly's Fair Funding Act for education in Ohio. The sponsors are Bride Sweeney, who is nearby to us in the west side of Cleveland, and Jamie Callender. It is for all intents and purposes the same as the Cup-Patterson report. There were a few technical changes on language, but it is House Bill 1. The intention is for the House to finish any discussion on it and get it over to the Senate as soon as possible so that the Senate can do their work on the plan and then incorporate it as part of the biennium budget that is being worked on right now and needs to be passed by June. So that is the plan, and we will continue to pay attention. I know Senator Dolan has talked with Cameron, has talked with various superintendents in the area. I actually had a chance to talk to Representative Patton over the weekend about it. We've all had opportunity to give our input. I think the big looming question is the plan as it stands now is a $2 billion increase, and how to pay for that is the $64,000, $2 billion question. But it will obviously affect us, so we will continue to pay attention and advocate for Strongsville. That concludes my comments. Next is board liaison reports. Should we start with city council?
Sure, there were two meetings this February, February 1st and February 16th. A couple of things to note from those. Due to the snowstorm that hit Tuesday, they held their regular meeting, but they did not hold their economic committee meeting that was supposed to be before caucus that evening. So if you're interested in the economic committee meeting and as it pertains to potential rezoning of the mall area, you're gonna wanna head to the meeting. It'll happen before their first March meeting. So that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. And then because they moved the economic committee meeting, they also bumped the rec and community services meeting that was supposed to take place before the first March meeting to the second March meeting. So note a couple of changes. If the rec and community services is of interest to you, you're gonna wanna check out the second March meeting. You probably all noticed the construction in front of Target they're fixing a culvert there to help resolve some drainage issues. They haven't stated, or I haven't heard how long that's gonna be going on, but good news is it's started. Hopefully sooner rather than later. And then finally, there's some good news from the Rec and Community Services Department for parents, especially with younger kids. They are trialing reopening the pirate ship for particular hours. So starting March 4th, Fridays from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then again from 5 to 7 p.m. They will have openings at the pirate ship, 20 people per session. You'll be able to sign up online for those time slots 48 hours beforehand. Members, it would be free, and then there is a fee for non-members, a standard fee for non-members. So if you're interested in that, be ready on March 2nd at 9 a.m. or 5 p.m. and get online, try to get one of those sessions. And hopefully it's successful that day. We are off of school. So I imagine they're going to have a big rush of much success. And if this is well attended, they're going to look at opening more opportunities. So please do take advantage of that if you're interested. That concludes my report.
ARG, that's good news.
You would.
Strongsville Education Foundation?
Yes, their next meeting is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., but I was able to exchange emails with Dustin, their president, today, and he wanted me to let you know that year-to-date, they've raised almost $2,000 to further their mission. They are working to hold virtual monthly fundraisers throughout 2021 in lieu of their annual J&J event. They have paid out all their scholarship requests to date, which totaled over $15,000. And there is still grant money available to our staff, and Dr. Ryba has been communicating that out to our staff through his email communications. And that concludes my report.
Strongsville PTA?
Let's see, we had a meeting, a couple weeks ago, I think it is now. Couple things, the annual Founders Day, where the winners of the PTA Achievement Award are recognized. It's going to be a virtual event this year. The planning is still in process and the date is to be determined. And then seniors interested in applying for PTA scholarships should go to the Strongsville High School Guidance Department website. The scholarships are about $500 a piece, so if you have questions with that and interested in applying for one of the scholarships, check out the Guidance Department website. And then another thing at the, Katie Hawk actually gave a presentation. I think she's a teacher, but.
She's a literacy coach here.
Oh, a literacy.
Oversees our virtual program at the elementary level.
Literacy coach?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at the, elementary, I think she's at Sarar and Kinsner, she said?
Kinsner, yeah.
Okay.
That's rare, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And she gave a presentation on SCS Connects, which was very informative. It's fun to watch. And she went into a classroom and just gave us a peek into what's going on with the additional teachers and how that works. She seems to have done got some feedback from parents, just getting a feel for what they like and dislike about the program. And then I think, Cameron, you correct me if I'm wrong, under the superintendent, 60 Minutes with the superintendent, is her program Or is there something under there?
Yeah, we've done a couple features on the SES Connects and then our Solo 2.0 program. So those were the last couple weeks people can check out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
check, you can take a look at that. And, that concludes my report for that.
Thank you, Sherry.
Rich,
Oh.
can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Is the fundraiser still going on for the PTA council?
No,
Yeah.
I-
Okay.
I don't think a particular fundraiser, they didn't mention
There
that.
was one, but I just don't know when the deadline is,
Oh,
so I
okay.
thought I'd mention it if it's still up, but I don't even know, to be honest.
I'm sure we're gonna find out before Board of Education other, and then we'll have an update.
Yeah. Can I also correct the date? March 5th is the pirate ship. I think I said the 4th, just so we have
Oh,
the date
okay.
clear.
Oh, I wish, I will keep my mischievous thoughts to myself.
Yeah.
I can confirm the treats from the PTA Council fundraiser, the granola and the beef jerky was really good. I ordered and the delivery came pretty quick. So if you
Oh,
order
okay.
online, it comes within a week. So it was quick.
Did you get the mint granola?
I did not, I
I
think it was
heard it
chocolate
tastes
chip.
like Thin Mints.
Really?
Might have to
So I
reorder.
hear,
Might have to go, yeah.
right?
And so, once we get the date, we'll have to make sure to order the mint granola.
Sale dates are February 8th through February 26th.
Okay.
Act now.
But
Anything
we're
else?
always collecting money for PTA scholarships. I just wanted to say that for the high school scholarships, they're always welcoming donations for that. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Student achievement, Seth.
Yes, the DECA program at the Strongsville High School participated in the districts held virtually this year. 105 Strongsville students competed, and they all did a great job, so congratulations to them. But we also want to make sure we highlight the 71 that are going to state for DECA. So great job to the DECA program, and good luck to all the students going to state. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Board committee reports. Do we have a finance committee update?
We would have if the snow would not have come, but unfortunately, we had to cancel that meeting, and we'll be sending out a notification here probably next couple days with a new date for the new meeting.
Policy committee, I don't believe we have anything to report on, and our next meeting is to be announced. Facilities committee?
Oh, well, we had a meeting, the date was January 28th. Discussed a lot of things at the meeting. See, I'll highlight a couple things. We talked about the vacant pieces of property that the school board owns, and what should we do with that, particularly the piece on Albion. For now, the consensus was to just hold on to the property. Like one of the members mentioned, you can't get land that can't be reproduced, so just hold on to it until see what comes up. We'll talk about this later, but we had a new member interested in joining our group, so the board needs to approve that, or and that'll be later. We talked about an enrollment study, completing a enrollment study just to decide right now, do we need an elementary school? Do we need the ones we have? How to distribute the kids among the elementary schools. Some districts have maybe 5 through 6 at one elementary school, 1 through 3 at another elementary school. So just discussing, is that something Strongsville will be interested in? Just talking about it. Nothing for sure, but how would we do that? And the enrollment study will help us with a lot of decisions there. Steve had asked his custodians, the custodians at the different elementary schools, to keep an eye out on different needs the schools may have. So he created a chart, a flow chart, or spreadsheet, I'm sorry, just for the elementary school custodians to give their input on what they think is to really prioritize the needs for each of the schools. and let us know issues that we might be having and, what's more important, et cetera. And then, let's see here. See. Well, it's a pretty involved meeting, but our next meeting is March 11th, and we'll follow up on a lot of things we had talked about. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. And just to be clear, that's March 11th at 6:30 in this building. Business Advisory Council Committee meeting,
Nothing to report.
and our next meeting is to be announced. Next on the agenda is our consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar at this point of the agenda means all items appearing in the agenda with asterisks are adopted in one single motion unless requested otherwise. Do I have any otherwise? Hearing none, I will highlight that section 9E10, we are removing unpaid leaves certificated. Unpaid leaves non-certificated remain in effect. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Hearing none, take the roll, George.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes, and the motion carries. Superintendent's timely information. Are we going to school tomorrow?
I am. I don't know about anybody else.
Well, that's as timely as you can get.
Is it supposed to snow more tonight?
It's supposed to
Yeah.
snow, I thought it was 5 inches.
Ah.
5 inches.
My groan is that means I'm up at like 4:30 in the morning. And so is Steve. I look forward to the conversation, Mr. Bregner. Well, I did not pay attention that much to the weather, so, okay. Well, hopefully we will be here, but we will see. Barring that, I just wanted to share some other updates. As I said in my parent update this week, thank you so much to the community for the understanding. We understand the school year. We've switched around dates, we moved things around, but it's for the long-term benefit of our staff and our kids. And so just a reminder, we've got some upcoming changes that we've announced here a couple weeks ago. But Thursday, March 4th, that will be another asynchronous learning day. That's the second dose of the vaccine for our staff. Again, our staff gets the vaccine between 9 a.m. and 1:30. And so we've got a large number of people, so we can't open and operate for those days. That will be an asynchronous remote learning day. Friday, March 5th is a professional development day for our staff. That's not a school day for students, so no asynchronous learning. And then that's a swap from Monday, March 15th. So Monday, March 15th, we've updated the calendars on the website, but if you've written it down in a planner or somewhere else or circled it on the calendar, March 15th is now a school day, traditional regular school day for all of our students, and that's swapped from March 15th to March 5th. And just a reminder, spring break is around the corner. It starts on Friday, April 2nd, and continues on for that first full week in April. And mark your calendars if you haven't already. Our annual State of the Schools presentation is going to be on Wednesday, March 3rd. It's going to be a virtual meeting. Starts at 6:30 p.m. You can live stream it just like you're live streaming the board meeting on any of your devices or through the website. It will be a presentation by me, some video elements to highlight what's going on in the district, and as we traditionally do, a virtual Q&A at the end of it. So about an hour together and give everybody an update on where we're at as a school district and where we're going. And with that, that concludes my timely information.
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. I will echo, it's almost a parlor game to watch the news and find out what's not going well as far as the vaccine is concerned. The work that the Educational Service Center has done has been excellent. And it's been efficient, it's been well done. We haven't had any issues of the wrong vaccine or it not being kept cold or any of those kinds of things that you've read, I'm sure, news stories. Everybody who signed up was able to get in line, was able to get their shot, get the vaccine, and then move on and let other people do the same thing. So that was a good thing to hear. It was excellent to hear. I do also appreciate all the flexibility that our parents and community have showed us. It has been a lot of bouncing around. This particular one is an investment in getting back to normal, and I think that's an investment well worth making. But thank you, and make sure to let them know we thank their hard work they've done. Next on our agenda is Board of Education Other. First is a resolution to approve an addendum to the employment contract of Dr. Cameron M. Ryba, Superintendent of Schools of the Strongsville City School District. Be it resolved that the Strongsville City Schools Board of Education approve an addendum to the employment contract of Dr. Cameron M. Ryba, Superintendent of Schools of the Strongsville City School District, as stated in the exhibit. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? I will share with the community that it is our job as a board to attract and retain qualified, excellent staff. One of the things that we did was we adjusted our administrative handbook a number of years ago, and that caused some inconsistencies between the admin handbook and the way we deal with some other people in our district, and we wanted to clear that up. But it is our job to attract and retain excellent staff for the benefit of our schools and our students, and this is part of that. So I did want to share that with the community, and I wanted to share with Dr. Ryba that he earned it. He earned it through his hard work and his dedication to the district. Any other comments? Hearing none. George, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Sully?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Next is a resolution to approve an addendum to the employment contract of George K. Anagnastu, Treasurer of the Strongsville City School District. Be it resolved that the Strongsville City Schools Board of Education approves an addendum to the employment contract of George K. Anagnastu, Treasurer of the Strongsville City School District, as stated in the exhibit. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? We could just rewind and replay what I just said, but what I will highlight is, George, you've earned it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Sully?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. We now come to probably the most important part of our meeting, appointment of new member to the Board Facilities Committee. Be it resolved that the Strongsville Schools Board of Education approves the addition of a new member, Kevin Walter, to the Board Facility Committee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. I believe we have some discussion. We do?
Good evening, everybody. For you who don't know who I am, I'm Bill Burdick. I'm the Vice Chair of the Facilities Committee. I found out last month I was. And I want to thank you, Mr. Bruckner, and Mr. Harbard really thanks you as well. But at our meeting last month, it was a decision, a unanimous vote by our group to accept Kevin Walters as our new member of the committee. Mr. Walters has lived in Strongsville for over 9 years. His two kids out of his 3 are students here within the Strongsville City Schools. He's going to be a real asset to our committee because his degree is in construction management. And as down the road with changes with our buildings and everything, it's going to be a true asset to our organization. And he's got over 15 years experience in dealing with this. So on behalf of David Harbard, who's our chair, the members of our organization, we do appreciate you folks voting and accepting Mr. Walters to our organization and to our committee. So, Kevin, congratulations.
Thank you.
And that. And that's my report.
Kevin, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely, sure. So at a high level, that was the highlights. 15 years plus as a construction management facilities manager, so mainly as an owner's representative. So my mindset is about what the best thing for the facility is, what makes sense. more than just build it, understanding why, identifying opportunities and assets. So really, that and my general interest in public service sparked my interest to become more involved. And my oldest is only in first, so we have plenty of years ahead of us. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, and I will share that I said it tongue-in-cheek that it was the most important part of our meeting, but I do think it's important to highlight that the Board Facility Committee is an example of how we do things in Strongsville. And it is a board committee. It means it's open to the public. It means anybody in the public, anybody concerned can attend those meetings. But we also have a little bit of structure to try to give some weight to those meetings. And being a voting member of the committee is part of that, where we try to get the expertise from the community so that we can have that community engagement and we can leverage the resources. Back when we did the Strongsville Middle School built the Strongsville Middle School, when we did the renovation for the high school, it was the Board Facility Committee that allowed us to have as much impact as we did in those projects, because we were able to bring in people who had the expertise that the board or the administration didn't necessarily have, and we could make sure to deliver what I think was one of the best facilities and one of the best renovations in the state, if not in the country. So, Kevin, thank you for your time. Thank you for your involvement, and we look forward to many good things in the years to come. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes, and the motion carries. Meeting notification. A regular Board of Education meeting work session will be held Thursday, March 4th, 7 p.m. in the meeting room of the admin building. Another regular Board of Education meeting will be held March 18th in the meeting room of the admin building. Is this where we discuss?
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it. So the March 18th meeting will stay the same. We want to move the March 4th meeting. Cameron, do you want to discuss it?
Yeah, March 4th, as we just talked about, is the vaccination day, so we thought with three of us getting that vaccination, and we thought maybe it'd be a good opportunity to look at another day. So the 3rd is the state of the school, so May 1st is the Monday, or March 1st is the Monday, or March 2nd. So is there a preference from the board in terms of when we hold that meeting?
Second.
Second.
I like the second, unless it's a conflict for someone.
Sherry, you're good with the second?
What? Yeah, I could do that.
Is the first better?
Yeah, but I can work it out.
Okay.
Okay.
Laura?
That's fine.
March 2nd it is?
March 2nd,
So, Mr. Adnagnastu, you'll post the cancellation and the whatever we call it?
Yeah, Mrs. Evangelista will do it.
Yes, she will. Thank you. So, meeting notification. A regular Board of Education meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 2nd at 7 p.m. in the admin building right here. Executive session. We do have reason for executive session on the topics of
To consider the employment of a public employee and to review negotiations with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Did you say negotiations?
Mhm.
Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Mrs. Hausum. Any discussion? Take the roll.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Salee?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes. The motion carries. We will enter into executive session at 8:20 p.m. We have no expectation of further business. Thank you for your attention and have a good weekend.